Good morning, good morning. It is your boy Jay Goble back at it again with you. Not many noble in the house, on the scene, on the set. Reading the Bible through in 2022. We are on day 39, February 8th. Reading the Bible according to a chronological reading list. Or the Bible in chronological order. If this is your first time, welcome. We're in the book of Exodus. If you've been with us, you know where we at. And you're like, let's go, let's get it. But let me catch some other people up real quick. We started in Genesis and then we went to Job. That's how this chronological order goes. We talked a little bit about Job and why it could be that is placed there. But I like it. It's good. It gives us kind of a good look at the world, I guess, before we start getting into the Exodus out of Egypt. And of course, the children of Israel grow strong in Egypt. They initially ended up there because of a famine. And in the years leading up to that famine, God sent one of the sons of Jacob, the beloved son, Joseph, down to Egypt in preparation for his people to join him there. And Joseph was, through many trials and tribulations, promoted to the number one, just under Pharaoh in Egypt, and his entire family came down to him. Bada boom, bada bing. From there, they end up becoming enslaved to the Egyptians because the Egyptians feared them and murder, death killed their infant boys. The Egyptians did. And when they couldn't get the midwives to do the job, right when the baby was born, they left it up to the people to take the matter into their own hands. So God then uses this visitation upon the children of Israel in Egypt, where he inflicts the Egyptians with 10 plagues to bring them out of Egypt. And the plagues were blood, was the number one, turned water into blood. 2, frogs. 3, lice came on the land. 4, flies came on the land. 5, pestilence came on the livestock. 6, boils afflicted the people. 7, hail came and destroyed everything, and what wasn't destroyed by the hail was eaten up by 8 locusts. Then darkness came over the land. That was the 9th, and then the last one was the death of the firstborn. And Israel was passed over because they had marked the lintel and their doorways with blood from a sacrifice, and they ate the Passover meal ready to go. And they ended up, and that's what broke Pharaoh, and they were let go. And they did leave. And then Pharaoh said, man, what are we doing? And his people was like, yeah, we can't let them people go. We got to go get them. So they tried to go get them into the wilderness, and God miraculously brought them through and then the Red Sea, and then closed the waters up on the Egyptians, and they died. And that's how he delivered his people out of slavery. And he delivered Joseph out of slavery. He delivered Israel out of slavery. And there's this recurring theme that keeps coming up: deliverance out of slavery, which this bondage to sin, and is a picture of. This is a picture of the bondage to sin that we are delivered from by the Lord Jesus Christ, whose life, death, and resurrection, and the blood of the Lamb. He is the Passover Lamb. He's the Lamb of God who, when we are covered with his blood, secures for us life and allows the angel of death to pass over us. All right. So they're out in the wilderness, and already children of Israel complaining against Moses. They're complaining against Aaron. And they're like, you brought us out here to die at least twice. They have become so discouraged that they want God just to kill them. And then God feeds them with manna. God feeds them with quail. He provides water miraculously out of a rock and preserves his people. after he brought them up out of Egypt. And then he gives them the 10 Commandments on Mount Sinai. And they see it. They hear his voice. They see lightnings. They see thunder. They hear thunder. They see lightning. They hear thunder. They see clouds on this mountain. They see fire. God is a very present being in a very special way for Israel. And he commands them not to have any other gods. Don't make any other gold images. And in Exodus chapter 20, he gives 10 commandments, which we found were the basic moral law that's been there since creation. We see pieces of it, how it was transmitted, how it was communicated from Noah's children down. We don't know exactly, but it was already known throughout the lands where Abraham went, Isaac went, Jacob went. Where they went, this was known. These were known as the commands of God, the moral commandments of God for life that is encapsulated in the 10 Commandments. 1, you shall have no other gods before me. 2, you shall make no graven images and bow down to them. 3, you shall not misuse Yahweh's name. Take the name of the Lord your God in vain. 4, you shall keep the Sabbath day holy. 5, you shall honor your father and mother. 6, you shall not murder. 7, you shall not commit adultery. 8, you shall not steal. 9, you shall not bear false testimony against your neighbor. And 10, you shall not covet your neighbor's wife, anything that he has. So pretty much nothing. You're not allowed to covet anything. Not allowed to covet anything anybody has. And then these then are further broken down in the Gospels as the two great commandments, right? The first is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And then the second is to love your neighbor as yourself. And we see that here. But it's not, how do you really define loving your neighbor as yourself? Well, this is what I've got. You honor your father and your mother. You don't commit murder. You don't commit adultery. You don't steal. You don't lie. You don't covet. You bring out the best in your neighbors instead. The best in you brings out the best in them. You don't want to be killed, right? But instead you want life. And Christ gives us life more abundantly. You want freedoms. You want liberty. You want purpose. Adultery, you don't destroy other people's intimate relationships. Instead, you work on your own, and you are given one other person with whom you have an intimate relationship, and you seek and you work to make their life better. It works together. You got to work together. No stealing. Don't take other people's stuff. You don't want your stuff stolen. Instead, you work so that you might have something to share with those who are in need, so they don't need to steal. They might not steal. Again, the best in you brings out the best in others. And you don't give false testimony. You don't lie about others in order to advance your own cause. Instead, you speak truth. You stand for truth. And no coveting. You're not sitting there looking to lust on what other people have, and you want that. I desire this. Yeah, you say no. I'm going to work for what I have, and I'm going to be content. Not contented to just sit and do nothing, but content with the results. And then the relationship, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. The relationship of the first 4. And this is how we deal with God. No other gods before me, no graven images, no misusing the Yahweh's name or the attributes of his name, right? Because we talked about that. Oh my goodness, you have no goodness. You have no goodness of your own. So we got to find different ways to express ourselves and different ways to think about it and look at the world. Keep the Sabbath day holy. The Sabbath was created for man, not man for the Sabbath. Rest. All right. So then we get this general law, the general moral principles that by which God governs the world in which we are called to obey. From beginning, this is the key here. This is the key. That this is from creation. It harkens back to day one. This is how these are the laws of the land. These are the laws of creation, always have been. Now we get into chapter 21 here, and it says, now these are the ordinances which you shall set before them. He's talking to Moses, and he's talking about the children of Israel, and we're talking about specific rules, regulations, and laws of the Mosaic covenant for the children of Israel. And it's important because we see stuff and we like it, but we don't like everything. And the tendency is for us to misapply these texts, to take one of them and say, yes, I'm going to use this one because I like it. I like this principle, and I'm going to order my life around it, and I'm going to judge other people who don't do this, and I'm going to use this text to try to win arguments and influence people and influence the world. Now, having said that, kind of this caution, the reality is many of our laws were based on very similar laws, right? So this group of laws and rules and regulations for the children of Israel is made its way forward, and we can see elements of it encapsulated in the Magna Carta. We can see elements encapsulated in our laws. In fact, these laws of creation, the Ten Commandments, we see everywhere in our laws. Everywhere we see. And we see some elements of these other laws. And so why are we talking about all this? Because we're setting the context for how we're going to read these laws, how we're going to understand these things, and that when we see some things, especially those laws, rules, verses that touch on some of our modern hot topics, we are emotionally inclined to jump in with them and be like, look, thus saith the Lord. The challenge with that is, of course, what we've been talking about, that if you want to embrace all of the Mosaic law, if you want to embrace all of this, you have to be a Jew. And you're missing the point of the law. You're missing the point really of law in general as well, because they're supposed to point you to Christ. Even though these rules were from the beginning, we know that they've been broken from the beginning. From the beginning. No murder. Hello, Cain and Abel. Right? This is what happened from the beginning. God's law was broken. We cannot keep it. Cannot keep it individually. We cannot keep it corporately. We cannot keep it collectively. We can whatever grouping you want to have. We cannot keep it. We cannot keep the laws of God. We need to be redeemed. We need redemption. We need the seed of the woman to save us. That is the Lord Jesus Christ. So we see these elements playing out, right? The seed of the woman, seed of the serpent, this element of redemption, and that the wages of sin is death. That's it. Wages of sin is death. All right. We're picking up in 22:16, and we were reading through 24:18. All right. Here we go. Excusez-moi. Exodus 22:16. If a man entices a virgin who isn't pledged to be married and lies with her, he shall surely pay a dowry for her to be his wife. If her father utterly refuses to give her to him, he shall pay money according to the dowry of virgins. It's what you got to pay. There's a cost. There is a cost. Love is not free. It never is. This sex is never free. Never free. There's always a cost for intimate relationships. All right, I know you want to hear more, but I'm going to keep going. Verse 18, you shall not allow a sorceress to live. Capital punishment for sorcery. Whoever has sex with an animal shall surely be put to death. Capital punishment for bestiality. He who sacrifices to any god except to Yahweh shall be utterly destroyed. You shall not wrong an alien or oppress him, for you were aliens in the land of Egypt. You shall not take advantage of any widow or fatherless child. If you take advantage of them at all, and they cry at all to me, I will surely hear their cry, and my wrath will grow hot, and I will kill you with the sword. Your wives shall be widows, and your children fatherless. Well, how does he do that? Does God come down, pick up a sword, and start swinging? No, he uses other people. He uses other bands. He uses other nations. He uses other tribes to bring judgment and to come in. That's why, this element, even if Job happened a little bit after this, you can see why Job's friends were like, look, your children were killed by the sword. Come on. You must have been oppressing widows. You must have been. You must have been oppressing the fatherless. You must have been in sin. And Job stands by. But you can see this is our nature. This is what we do. We see something bad happen, we say, God's punishing you for this reason. And without all the particulars, without being able to see behind the curtain, we don't know that. It's not the only time the sword comes against you. If you lend money to any of my people let me try it over. No, verse 25, if you lend money to any of my people with you, who is poor, you shall not be to him as a creditor. You shall not charge him interest. If you take your neighbor's garment as collateral, you shall restore it to him before the sun goes down. For that is his only covering. It is his garment for his skin. What would he sleep in? It will happen when he cries out that I will hear, for I am gracious. Now we see this usury come up again in the Proverbs, and we like to talk and discuss whether it's right to charge interest to people or banks immoral. Should they be done away with? These are questions that come up. And within the covenant, within the covenant people of Israel, it's fairly clear you are not allowed to charge interest. You were not allowed to. Now, were they in violation of God's law? In this specific law, yes, they were. At some point, we see that. And then you try to extrapolate it and answer to yourself, is it okay if I charge interest? If I, can I start a bank? Can I make loans? Can I charge interest? Can I make money that way? I would say the answer is yes. Again, you are not bound by the Mosaic covenant. Is there a principle? Sure, there's a principle that you should not charge exorbitant interest, and maybe the closer the relationship to you, maybe the less interest you charge, right? If it's a family member, maybe you don't charge any interest. If it's a member of your local congregation, maybe you don't charge any interest. You certainly don't try to profit off the fact that they need money or profit exorbitantly on it, right? But so what's exorbitant profit? What percentage? You got to draw the line. You got to show me the verse. So, and then we see principles set forth, but you don't have laws where you say, you have to do this. X percent you may charge and no more. And if it's in church, you can't do it. You don't get to say that. We can try to live properly in light of principles that we see. That's it. That's all you get. You shall not blaspheme God, nor curse a ruler of your people. You shall not delay to offer from your harvest and from the outflow of your presses. You shall give the firstborn of your sons to me. You shall do likewise with your cattle and with your sheep. It shall be with its mother 7 days. Then on the 8th day you shall give it to me. You shall be holy men to me. Therefore you shall not eat any meat that is torn by animals in the field. You shall cast it to the dogs. Okay, just real quick. Last thing here. So we see the death penalty prescribed for sorcery. We see the death penalty ascribed for bestiality. We see the death penalty prescribed for idolatry. And oftentimes, right? Sometimes you get, if you are an unbeliever and you hear me read this, you're like, yeah, what's up with that? And perhaps if you are a believer and you have friends and they try to throw these verses at you and be like, I want answers right now. Should we go kill? Should we burn witches? What else burns? More witches. The answer, I would argue, is no. An extreme no. You shouldn't. Now, does that mean these things are now right? No. Does it mean they're not sin? No. Does it mean that this is moral behavior? No. However, does that mean we should line them up and slay them? No. We want hope and redemption and repentance for all of them, right? You cannot sin your way out of his grace. Chapter 23. You shall not spread a false report. Don't join your hand with the wicked to be a malicious witness. You shall not follow a crowd to do evil. You shall not testify in court to side with a multitude, to pervert justice. You shall not favor a poor man in his cause. If you meet your enemy's ox or his donkey going astray, you shall surely bring it back to him again. If you see the donkey of him who hates you fallen down under his burden, don't leave him. You shall surely help him with it. You shall not deny justice to your poor people in their lawsuits. Keep far from a false charge, and don't kill the innocent and righteous, for I will not justify the wicked. You shall take no bribe, for a bribe blinds those who have sight and perverts the words of the righteous. You shall not oppress an alien, for you know the heart of an alien, since you were aliens in the land of Egypt. For 6 years you shall sow your land, and shall gather in its increase. But the 7th year you shall let it rest and lie fallow, that the poor of your people may eat, and what they leave the animal of the field shall eat. In the same way you shall deal with your vineyard and with your olive grove. 6 days you shall work, and on the 7th day you shall rest, that your ox and your donkey may have rest, and the son of your servant and the alien may be refreshed. Be careful to do all these things that I have said to you, and don't invoke the name of other gods or even let them be heard on your mouth. You shall observe a feast to me 3 times a year. You shall observe the feast of unleavened bread. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread, as I commanded you at the time appointed in the month Abib. For in it you came out of Egypt, and no one shall appear before me empty. And the feast of harvest, the first fruits of your labors, which you sow in the field, and the feast of ingathering at the end of the year, when you gather in your labors out of the field. 3 times in the year all your males shall appear before the Lord Yahweh. You shall not offer the blood of my sacrifice with leavened bread. The fat of my feast shall not remain all night until the morning. You shall bring the first of the first fruits of your ground into the house of Yahweh your God. You shall not boil a young goat in its mother's milk. Behold, I send an angel before you, to keep you by the way, and to bring you into the place which I have prepared. Pay attention to him and listen to his voice. Don't provoke him, for he will not pardon your disobedience, for my name is in him. But if you indeed listen to his voice and do all that I speak, then I will be an enemy to your enemies, an adversary to your adversaries. So this if-then showed up before, and they fail. They fail quickly, spectacularly. They do not listen to God's voice. They do not heed his voice. They do not obey, even though he showed up in a very powerful way and sent his angel to go before them, to be as a representative for God. And they had pillars of smoke, they had fire, they had a cloud and a pillar of fire. They had visual representation. They could see, they could hear, they could taste, they could smell. God was present among them in a special, dynamic way. Still wasn't enough. Still wasn't enough. For my angel shall go before you. We're in verse 23. We're in 23 here. For my angel shall go before you and bring you into the Amorite, the Hittite, the Perizzite, the Canaanite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite, and I will cut them off. Their time is done. God's cutting them off, and he's using this people to do it. Using his people, the children of Israel, to do it. You shall not bow down to their gods, nor serve them, nor follow their practices, but you shall utterly overthrow them and demolish their pillars. You shall serve Yahweh, your God, and he will bless your bread and your water, and I will take sickness away from among you. No one will miscarry or be barren in your land. I will fulfill the number of your days. I will send my terror before you and will confuse all the people to whom you come, and I will make all your enemies turn their backs to you. I will send the hornet before you, which will drive out the Hivite, the Canaanite, and the Hittite from before you. I will not drive them out from before you in 1 year, lest the land become desolate, and the animals of the field multiply against you. Little by little I will drive them out from before you, until you have increased and inherit the land. I will set your border from the Red Sea even to the Sea of the Philistines, and from the wilderness to the river. For I will deliver the inhabitants of the land into your hand, and you shall drive them out before you. You shall make no covenant with them, nor with their gods. They shall not dwell in your land, lest they make you sin against me. For if you serve their gods, it will surely be a snare to you. We know that that's exactly what happens. Well, we're going to keep reading, but that's exactly what happens. All right, chapter 24, and we are going to verse 18. That's the rest of the chapter. Nice, good. He said to Moses, come up to Yahweh, you and Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu. Remember, Nadab and Abihu were Aaron's sons, and 70 of the elders of Israel, and worship from a distance. Moses alone shall come near to Yahweh, but they shall not come near me. The people shall not go up with him. Moses came and told the people all Yahweh's words and all the ordinances, and all the people answered with one voice and said, all the words which Yahweh has spoken will we do. We gonna do it. That's what they say. We gonna do it. We are gonna do it. We will obey. Moses wrote all Yahweh's words, then rose up early in the morning and built an altar at the base of the mountain with 12 pillars for the 12 tribes of Israel. He sent young men of the children of Israel who offered burnt offerings and sacrificed peace offerings of cattle to Yahweh. Moses took half of the blood and put it in basins, and half of the blood he sprinkled on the altar. He took the book of the covenant and read it in the hearing of the people, and they said, we will do all that Yahweh has said and be obedient. Moses took the blood and sprinkled it on the people and said, look, this is the blood of the covenant which Yahweh has made with you concerning all these words. Then Moses, Aaron, Nadab, Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel went up. They saw the God of Israel. Under his feet was like a paved work of sapphire, stone for the sky, like the skies for clearness. He didn't lay his hand on the nobles of the children of Israel. They saw God and ate and drank. Yahweh said to Moses, come up to me on the mountain and stay here, and I will give you the stone tablets with the law and the commands that I have written, that you may teach them. Moses rose up with Joshua his servant, and Moses went up onto God's mountain. He said to the elders, wait here for us until we come again to you. Behold, Aaron and Hur are with you. Whoever is involved in a dispute can go to them. Moses went up on the mountain, and the cloud covered the mountain. Yahweh's glory settled on Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it 6 days. The 7th day he called to Moses out of the middle of the cloud. The appearance of Yahweh's glory was like devouring fire on the top of the mountain in the eyes of the children of Israel. Moses entered into the middle of the cloud and went up on the mountain, and Moses was on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. Man, there's a lot there, huh? There is a lot there. This is interesting. The blood of the covenant which Yahweh has made with you concerning all these words. The blood of the covenant. The blood represents this truth that we've been talking about from the beginning, that the wages of sin is death, and that sin is covered by blood. And that's what we need. We need the blood of a better covenant. We have the blood of a better covenant than the Mosaic covenant, than this covenant. But again, it reinforces, I guess, reinforces, maybe that's not the right word that I want, but we talked in the beginning about how we're going to view the Bible and maybe what the best way of viewing the Bible is and the way God deals with his people. And we talked about this principle, this concept that God deals with his people, or deals with people in general, in covenants. And we saw the Adamic covenant, right? Don't eat of the tree, stay here, do these things. We saw the Noahic covenant, go, be fruitful, multiply. We've seen now the Abrahamic covenant. We see the covenant with Jacob, right? When he was wrestling with God. We see the Mosaic covenant. So we see God make covenants with his people. God makes covenants, and he does all the work for it. And we have the same covenant, or we have a better covenant, the best covenant that all of them were pointing to in the Lord Jesus Christ. The seed of the woman, the seed of the serpent, the need of redemption, and the wages of sin is death, covered by blood. All right, show notes, notmanynoble.com. Thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for tuning in. And we're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. Share with anybody that you want. And I'll holler at y'all tomorrow. Thanks for listening.